welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the world of Ernst Cassirer.
Ernst Cassirer, yeah. He's a philosopher whose ideas might just change how you see
Everything.
everything, pretty much, yeah. Get ready to explore how symbols, those seemingly simple things like, words, images, all that, actually shape how we understand reality.
It's a big one.
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
So instead of experiencing the world directly, Cassirer said that we're always interpreting it.
Through these symbolic lenses, yeah.
Yeah. That's a big idea.
It's a huge idea, yeah. And it makes you think, what would the world even look like without all of these symbols, without those filters?
Yeah.
I mean, Cassirer believed that everything from language and myth to art and even science functions as a system of symbols,
Right.
which shapes how we see and understand the world.
Right. So let's start with some basics then. Who was Ernst Cassirer? What led him to these ideas?
Well, he was a German philosopher,
Okay.
and he lived through a really interesting time, 1874 to 1945. So a period of immense change and upheaval in Europe. He was born in Breslau, which is now Wrocław, Poland. And he later actually emigrated to the United States. So being exposed to different cultures probably contributed to his focus on how differently we understand the world, right?
So that kind of feeds into it a little bit.
Yeah.
And his most famous work, the one that really dives into these symbolic forms, is the philosophy of symbolic forms.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
In the philosophy of symbolic forms, Cassirer explores how those forms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Language, myth, art, religion, science.
Yeah.
He said they're not just ways that we express ourselves, but that they're actually the building blocks of reality as we understand it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So we often take language for granted, but Cassirer saw it as the most fundamental symbolic system. Why did he give language such a central role?
Well, I think because, think about it. We use language to categorize everything. We use it to order things. We use it to make sense of the world around us, right? And so the way we actually describe something shapes how we see it.
So it's not just reflecting reality, it's constructing it.
I think so, yeah. And it poses some interesting questions like, do people who speak different languages experience the world differently? That's what's so fascinating about Cassirer's work.
Yeah.
If language shapes our thoughts, then different languages with their own unique structures and nuances could lead to totally different perceptions of the world. And that has implications for everything.
So language is our first world.
Yeah.
But he didn't stop there.
No, he didn't. He didn't stop with language.
No.
He said that myth is a powerful symbolic form, too. And he's not just talking about Greek myths, you know?
Right.
He said myth isn't about literal truths. Myth is about how humans try to grapple with the unknown, with the mysteries of existence.
Right.
They give meaning to our lives, right? Even if they aren't factual in a scientific sense,
So I always think about the myth of Pandora's box, for example.
Right.
Not historically accurate.
Right.
But it does reflect this human truth, right? Our curiosity, our mistakes, the consequences that can follow. It's a way of understanding chaos, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And I think myths, they offer these narratives that help us make sense of the world, our place in it. They help us understand our values and our fears. They connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
Right. Okay, so this is where things get a little more interesting. Cassirer even saw science, which you would think is all about objectivity and reason, as a symbolic system.
Yeah.
So isn't science supposed to be about, the truth, discovering the truth?
That's what we're all taught, right? But Cassirer argues that science operates within specific symbolic frameworks. Scientific theories are based on concepts and assumptions and methods that are human creations. They're not just neutral reflections of reality. They're more like lenses, the way that we try to understand the world.
Okay, so even scientists are working within a system of symbols that shapes their understanding.
I think so, yeah.
That challenges the idea that science is purely objective. Does this mean that truth in science is more subjective than we think?
It's not that science is arbitrary. It's just that we have to recognize that there's a human element in scientific discovery. Think about how often scientific theories change, right?
Right.
New discoveries often lead to paradigm shifts.
Right.
Where old frameworks are challenged and new ones emerge.
Right. So language, myth, science, they're all symbolic systems, each with their own
strengths and limitations.
Right. Did Cassirer see these as separate, or did they interact?
I think he saw them as intertwined.
Yeah.
Deeply intertwined, that they overlap and influence each other. It's like a complex web of meaning. Language shapes scientific concepts, myth inspires art, art critiques science. They're all part of a conversation, really, about what it means to be human.
Right. Okay. So this gets me thinking. How are these different symbolic systems shaping our understanding of the world right now?
That's the question.
Right. What does this mean for our culture, for our values, even our own identities?
Yeah, exactly. And to really delve into those questions, we need to look at the historical context in which Cassirer developed all of these ideas, right?
Okay.
He was influenced by Kant, Immanuel Kant.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The philosopher.
Yeah. Who argued that, we can't really know things in themselves, only how they appear to us.
Yeah. Okay. So that relates a little bit.
Absolutely. Cassirer was building on Kant's insights.
Okay.
But Kant focused on these innate categories of understanding. Cassirer expanded that to encompass the diverse systems of symbols that shape our experience.
So he made it more cultural, historical.
Yeah, more cultural, more historical, exactly.
Yeah. And I know that Cassirer was part of the Neo-Kantian movement, right?
Yes, he was. The Neo-Kantians were a group of philosophers who reinterpreted and developed Kant's ideas for a new era. And Cassirer was a key figure. Okay. But he also developed his own original theories, his own theory of symbolic forms.
So both drawing from and pushing beyond.
Exactly, yeah.
So one of his most famous ideas is that humans are symbolic animals. What did he mean by that?
I think he meant that, what makes humans unique is that we don't just react to stimuli, right?
Yeah.
We create meaning through symbols.
Right.
And it's this ability to symbolize, that's the foundation of our culture, our communication, our understanding of ourselves.
Right. So we're constantly creating this web of meaning through the symbols that we use and create.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't just inhabit the world, right?
Right.
We create it, or at least we create our experience of it.
Through these symbolic systems.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is where Cassirer's own background comes in.
Right.
His Jewish heritage really influenced his thinking.
Yes. And his experiences, navigating a complex world and facing prejudice likely, heightened his sensitivity to the power of symbols, to unite, but also to divide. Yeah. And this sensitivity also kind of fueled his critique of positivism, which is a philosophical movement that emphasized empirical observation and scientific methods as the only source of knowledge.
Okay. So Cassirer wasn't a fan of positivism. Why not? I mean, data and facts seem really important today.
Yeah, of course they're important.
Right.
But he saw positivism as too narrow, too focused on objective facts,
okay.
At the expense of the richness of human experience. He argued that positivism overlooks interpretation and meaning-making and these frameworks that shape our understanding. It's like trying to understand a poem by just analyzing the meter and the rhyme scheme without considering the emotional impact.
Right. It's about how we interpret the data, the meaning we find.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, and this is one of the reasons why Cassirer's work is still so relevant today.
Yeah, I agree.
In a world where we have so much data, we need to remember meaning.
Yeah.
The human element.
Yes.
So Cassirer is reminding us that even in this data-driven age, we can't escape the power of symbols. They shape how we understand the world, ourselves, each other.
Exactly. And this brings us to the heart of Cassirer's legacy, really, this idea that we are fundamentally symbolic creatures, right?
Right.
Constantly creating and interpreting meaning.
Through the symbols around us.
Exactly.
Okay, and those symbols aren't static.
Right.
They're constantly changing, evolving.
They're interacting and shaping how we understand things in very profound ways.
Right, so to appreciate Cassirer's ideas, we need deeper examples.
Yes, we do.
Of how this all operates in different areas of human experience.
Like art, for example.
Okay.
Cassirer saw art as a powerful symbolic form, a way of knowing and experiencing the world that goes beyond just language and reason.
Okay. I've always thought of art as subjective and emotional. You're saying that Cassirer saw it as a way of knowing, like science or philosophy.
That's exactly what we'll explore next time. We'll delve into Cassirer's views on art and see how his ideas can help us understand art in a new way, how it shapes our perceptions and emotions and even our sense of self.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Ernst Cassirer.
Yes.
Before we got deeper into Cassirer's life and his influences, we were talking about how he saw those symbolic forms, right? And shaping our reality, and language being the most fundamental one.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it than that, especially when you think about how art fits into the picture.
You're right, yeah. We left off talking about how Cassirer saw science as a symbolic form, which kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
But now I'm really curious about how he viewed art. It seems so different from something like science, which is all about objectivity, about measurement.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people think. But Cassirer said that art isn't just about aesthetics or pretty pictures or whatever.
Right.
He saw it as another way that we make sense of the world, that we express our deepest emotions and experiences.
It's a form of knowledge, really, that goes beyond language and reason.
So art is more than just decoration or entertainment.
Right, exactly.
It's another way of knowing, of understanding ourselves and the world around us.
Yes, and he believed that art allows us to explore those things that are hard to articulate in words. Like, think about how a piece of music can make you feel all these things without a single word being spoken. Or how a painting can capture something.
The essence.
The essence of something that you can't describe.
Right, yeah. I've had experiences with art that have moved me.
Right.
And I can't really explain it. It's like art speaks a different language.
Yes, it does.
A language of color and textures and sounds that communicates in a different way.
And Cassirer saw that as being so important.
Right.
Because it allows us to tap into those aspects of reality that we just can't grasp.
With logic.
With logic, yeah.
With reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so where does art fit in then with all these other symbolic forms like language, myth, and science?
Well, I think Cassirer saw it as both distinct from, but also interconnected with all the others. While language is more analytical and science is more focused on observation and measurement, art kind of offers a different lens.
Right.
It prioritizes feeling, expression, and the way we experience reality.
So it's a different way of knowing.
Right.
Of encountering the world.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not about finding the right way to understand reality.
Yeah.
It's about appreciating how rich and diverse it is.
Yes, and how those different symbolic forms give us different insights and perspectives.
Right.
Remember how the original source material used the image of a Venn diagram to describe how symbolic forms overlap and influence each other? Art can draw on myth. It can reflect on scientific discoveries.
Okay.
You can even critique language.
That's all connected.
It's all connected, yeah. In constant dialogue, enriching and being enriched.
Wow, this is a complex web of meaning. But with all these different symbolic forms interacting, was Cassirer ever worried that they might clash? That this could lead to more chaos and confusion?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't see it as always harmonious.
Okay.
Right? He acknowledged that there's going to be tensions and disagreements
between the different symbolic systems.
Yes. But he saw that tension as a source of creativity and growth. That interplay is essential for human knowledge.
So it's not about finding that one true symbolic system. It's about embracing the fact that we don't understand everything.
Yeah, it's about the diversity of it.
The different insights.
Yes, and the different perspectives that we get from these systems.
So it's kind of like having a conversation with people from different backgrounds.
Exactly.
You might not always agree, but you get new insights.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so this brings us back to humans as symbolic animals.
Right.
We're not just passively experiencing, we're actively shaping.
We're shaping.
Our experience of it
right.
through the symbols we create and use.
And that has such profound implications.
For how we approach knowledge and culture, even politics.
Yeah, symbols are much more than just words and images.
Right, they're powerful tools.
They are.
They shape our perceptions, they determine our destinies.
Exactly. And that's why his work is still so relevant. Yeah. I mean, we live in a world saturated with symbols.
Right.
So understanding how those symbols work is more important now than ever.
Especially in this digital age,
right.
where we have new symbols popping up all the time.
Think about emojis, memes, virtual reality. Cassirer's work helps us understand those things.
Right.
But to really appreciate his work, we need to understand how he fits within philosophy as a whole.
Okay.
He didn't come up with these ideas in a vacuum.
Right.
He interacted with other thinkers of the time.
So who are some of those thinkers?
Well, Martin Heidegger, for one.
Okay.
Another giant of 20th century philosophy.
Yeah.
They were both concerned with big questions, but approached them so differently. It was a real clash of the titans.
What were some of the key differences? How did they view language? How did they view reality differently?
Well, Heidegger, he focused on individual existence.
Okay.
Our experience of being in the world.
Right.
And how our being is shaped by our finite nature, right?
Right.
He saw language as this primal force
okay.
that both reveals and conceals our being.
So it wasn't just a tool, it was shaping existence itself.
Exactly.
It held the key to these mysteries.
Now, Cassirer, he focused more on how those symbolic forms construct our understanding of the world.
Right.
He saw language as one of those forms, but he also emphasized myth, art, and science.
So Heidegger's delving into this depth of language.
Yeah.
Cassirer's more interested in how it shapes knowledge and experience.
It's like they're looking at the same mountain from different sides.
Right.
And this led to some interesting disagreements. Heidegger criticized what he saw as Cassirer's overemphasis on knowledge.
Okay.
He felt Cassirer neglected those more primal existential dimensions of human experience.
So Heidegger felt that Cassirer's focus on those forms didn't really capture the depth of the human experience.
Right.
The whole mystery of it.
Exactly.
Questions of meaning, mortality. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Cassirer, on the other hand, he criticized Heidegger's obscurity.
Okay.
His reliance on this very specialized language.
Right. Like it was too abstract.
Yes, much too abstract.
And inaccessible.
Exactly. Cassirer believed that philosophy should communicate with more people.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be confined to the ivory tower.
Right. It's about making it accessible.
Yeah, making it accessible.
Right.
And these disagreements weren't just about style, they were about big ideas, too.
About language and knowledge.
Exactly, yeah. It represented a big debate about some of the most important questions in philosophy.
So it's more than just a rivalry.
And more, yeah.
It's about the fundamental questions.
Yes. And this debate is still going on.
Still resonates today.
It does, absolutely.
Okay, so Cassirer and Heidegger, that's just one exchange. I'm sure there were others, too, that influenced him.
Oh, yeah, like Ludwig Wittgenstein.
Okay, another philosophical duel.
Yeah, Wittgenstein was very influential.
Right.
They were both interested in the relationship between language and reality.
But they came at it from different angles.
Right. Wittgenstein is famous for his idea of language games.
Okay.
The idea that language doesn't have a fixed meaning,
Okay.
but takes on different meanings depending on the context.
So meaning depends on how it's used.
Yes.
Not some essential definition.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Cassirer, he recognized context was important, but still emphasized the role of symbolic forms.
In shaping our understanding.
Yes, he saw it as a way of constructing our worldviews, not just playing games, as Wittgenstein might put it.
So Cassirer saw language as more structured.
Yes.
Wittgenstein more fluid, depending on context.
Yes, they're focusing on different aspects of language.
Right.
And these differences led to more disagreements. Wittgenstein criticized Cassirer for treating language as one big system. He thought he overlooked the diversity of its uses.
Right. The meaning can shift.
Right. Depending on context.
Wittgenstein's reminding us that language is alive.
Yes.
Constantly changing,
It's
adapting.
nice. Cassirer, though, would probably say that we still need some kind of framework
Right.
for understanding language.
How language helps us make sense of things.
Exactly.
Even with all its variations, it still plays a role in building our understanding of the world.
Yes, in creating meaning.
So they both have a point.
Yes, and that tension is still a big discussion in philosophy.
So these exchanges, even when there's disagreement,
Right.
push us to think about language and its role.
Yeah.
It's
Having
amazing.
these exchanges remind us that philosophy isn't about finding the right answer.
Right.
It's about the discussion.
The ongoing dialogues.
Exactly.
Questioning, exploring different views.
Yes.
Our journey through Cassirer has been amazing.
It has.
We've covered so much.
We have.
His concept of symbolic forms, the role of art, his impact on philosophy, his exchanges with other thinkers.
Right. But as we come to the end of our deep dive,
Yeah.
there's one more aspect we need to address.
Okay.
And this gets to the heart of why Cassirer is so compelling. His humanism.
Okay.
His belief in reason and culture
Right.
to overcome even the darkest times.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
We're talking about his experiences as a Jewish intellectual in Europe
Okay.
during the rise of Nazism,
Right.
the horrors of the Holocaust. This really shaped his thinking.
It's a reminder that these ideas
Right.
aren't just abstract.
Yeah.
They're forged through experience.
They are. And Cassirer saw the destructive power of ideology firsthand.
Right.
How symbols could be used to promote hatred and violence.
That must have been a difficult time.
It was, and it deepened his commitment to reason and tolerance and the free exchange of ideas.
So how do these experiences influence his philosophy?
Well, he intensified his critique of totalitarian ideologies,
Oh.
which he saw as attempts to impose just one symbolic system on society. to suppress disagreement and creativity.
So they were trying to control people's thoughts.
Exactly.
By controlling the symbols.
Yes.
So he's basically saying that a healthy society needs a diversity of ideas.
Yes. A free exchange, a respect for differences.
He needs a rich ecosystem.
It does.
Of symbols and ideas.
Yes, and not a wasteland.
Dominated by a single ideology.
Exactly. And remember, he's writing this in a world where these values were under attack.
Right. He's fighting for these values.
Yes, he is.
It's inspiring that he kept fighting.
It is.
For reason and humanism.
His work reminds us that philosophy is a way of engaging with the world.
Right.
Grappling with its challenges.
Of defending what we believe in.
Exactly.
It's a lesson in courage.
It is.
In the power of ideas.
Yes, and this lesson is just as important today.
Right.
Freedom of thought is still under threat.
We need to be critical thinkers.
We do.
To question.
To question.
To defend these values.
Open inquiry, dialogue, all of that.
Castor is reminding us that a healthy society needs a lot of voices.
It does.
A lot of perspectives.
Different interpretations.
Okay, so that wraps up our deep dive into Ernst Cassirer.
Yes.
A philosopher whose ideas are just as powerful and relevant today.
Yes, they are.
We've talked about his concept of symbolic forms, art as a way of knowing, his impact on philosophy, his courage.
As we finish, I think we should leave our listeners with a question.
Yes, a question that will stay with them.
So how are those symbolic forms around you shaping your understanding, the language you use, the media you consume, the art, the culture you embrace?
It's a great question.
It challenges us to be more aware
of how these forces shape us.
Exactly.
And with that, we conclude our deep dive into Ernst Cassirer.
Yes.
We hope you enjoyed this journey.
We hope it sparked your curiosity
to learn more
about this remarkable thinker
and the power of his ideas. Welcome back to our deep dive into Ernst Cassirer. We've been talking about how symbols shape our understanding of reality, from language to art.
And how those ideas have challenged some of the biggest names in philosophy. It's been pretty exciting.
Yeah. But I think some listeners might be feeling a little, I don't know, uncomfortable maybe with this whole idea of reality being shaped by symbolic forms. It kind of makes you wonder, if our understanding is so influenced by symbols, does that mean there's no objective truth? Is everything relative?
That's a question that a lot of people have. But it's important to remember that Cassirer wasn't saying reality is just made up.
Okay.
He believed that there's a real world out there independent of our thoughts.
So it's not like we're just imagining everything.
Right. It's more that our way of understanding that world is filtered through these symbolic systems.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Imagine you're trying to describe the taste of chocolate to someone who's never tasted it before.
Yeah.
You can use all sorts of words and comparisons, but you can never really fully convey what that taste is like.
Right. There's something about the actual experience.
Exactly. There's a gap between the reality of that taste and our ability to actually describe it with language.
So our symbolic forms are kind of like those words. They're tools, but they can't completely capture reality.
Precisely. And this means that while objective truth might exist, our understanding of it will always be shaped by the symbolic frameworks that we use.
I see. So it's like those frameworks are kind of like lenses, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like looking at a landscape through a pair of glasses. The landscape is real, but the way you see it depends on the lenses.
So the key is that our search for truth is this process of interpretation. It's about understanding those limitations.
And being open to other perspectives. And that's where Cassirer's idea about the different kinds of symbolic forms is so important. He really believed that by looking at all those systems, by considering those viewpoints, we can better understand the world.
So it's not about finding the one right system. It's about using all of them together.
Exactly. Like the old saying, 2 heads are better than 1.
Right. And that's why Cassirer is so relevant today.
Yeah.
We have information coming at us from everywhere.
And it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. We need to be thinking critically about those sources, about the narratives that shape our understanding.
Absolutely. We need to be skeptical, to be wary of anyone who claims to have all the answers.
Right. It's like a healthy society needs that debate, that conversation.
Exactly. A space where different perspectives can challenge each other.
That's a great point. So Cassirer is really reminding us that learning is this ongoing thing.
It is.
It requires open-mindedness and just a willingness to listen to other people.
And with that, I think we've come to the end of our deep dive into the world of Ernst Cassirer.
Yeah. His ideas are still so relevant today.
They are.
They challenge us. They inspire us.
He reminds us of how powerful symbols are, how they shape our world, and he invites us to really think about them critically and creatively.
So as we wrap up here, we want to encourage you to keep asking those big questions. Think about the symbols around you, the ones that shape your thoughts, your values, your sense of self. Don't just accept them without thinking. Explore them.
And remember, the journey of understanding never really ends. There's always more to learn, more to question. Until next time, keep exploring, keep thinking, keep diving deep.